Okay, so back to Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Apologies for starting a few seconds late. Last class, I gave you an intro to this, and we went through the first part. There are 4 parts, and the parts are called fits. So we had a fit with the first intro, whereby we were introduced to the Green Knight and the challenge that he laid down to Sir Gawain, that in what was called the beheading game, often, and we saw that Gawain had pledged to fulfill his part of the bargain in a year and a day's time. And what has happened here is not just a strange game, but a process of making a covenant with another character. And he's given his word at this, and his word is his bond. So we're involving something here called troth plighting, or trouth, Trowth, which we'll find in the second fit is significant to his very identity as a character, Sir Gawain, because the pentangle on his shield is a symbol of his truth, and truth has a symbol with it. So there's a lot of significance being connected to giving one's word here, and giving one's word as a connection strongly with the character of a Christian knight. So I said to you, a Christian knight is not just a warrior, but his character is of the utmost importance. And being truthful in his speech and his decorum is also of the utmost importance, because the connection of words with deeds, and words and deeds with moral character, is present from the time of Christ onwards. And so there's an integrity of action and person, which we've already seen from the beginning of the course is one of the challenges with Greek literature. Odysseus was renowned for being tricky, for being wise by a certain standard, a pragmatic one, being able to deceive his enemies, but was not renowned for his truthfulness and wisdom. In the person of Athena, seemed to have no care for the truth either. And that was sufficiently troubling that even the Greeks objected to this. As I say, Plato thought that Homer, in his depiction, not of Odysseus, but more of the portrait of the gods, gave us a sense that the gods were immoral in their character and actions in a way that nobody could possibly believe. Gods cannot be like the Homeric gods are being portrayed. That's what Plato said, or Socrates said. So they don't know what they're talking about, the Homeric poets. It cannot be so. There has to be justice done by the gods, because we believe that there is such a thing as justice, and that there is such a thing as truth, and the universe is been fabricated in that fashion, where we can make true statements about things. We can do mathematics, we can do geometry, we can understand all sorts of things, and it's not just a fraudulent, deceitful place full of injustice. Well, the Christians agree to that, and Gawain represents that in his very person. So he is a vicar of Christ, in the sense that he is like a living symbol, and the living symbol is, as I say, emblazoned on his shield as well. I'll get to that in a second here. But that is what we're going to encounter here in the second fit, which begins at New Year. So, as you recall, we left off last time with the Green Knight showing his bleeding head to Queen Guinevere and telling Gawain that we'll meet again in a year and a day. And before he rides away, they admire the axe, hang it up as a trophy, just like we saw Grendel's arm, and they don't seem to recognize the significance of what they're done, and they basically don't want to say to Guinevere, well, don't worry about that. Let's just concentrate on the festivities. And they have fun and so forth. But as we enter into the second fit, time has passed, or time is going to pass rather rapidly. So begins here saying, such earnest of noble action had Arthur at New Year, for he was avid to hear exploits vaunted. This is just recapitulating. Though starved of such speeches when seated at first, now had they high matter indeed, their hands full of it. Gawain was glad to begin the games in hall, and though the end be heavy, have no wonder, for if men are sprightly in spirit after strong drink, soon the year slides past, never the same twice. There is no foretelling its fulfillment from the start. Yes, this Yuletide passed, and the year following. Season after season in succession went by. After Christmas comes the crabbed Lenten time, leading up to Easter, which forces on the flesh, fish, and food yet plainer. So in Lent, it's a time for Catholics, they give up the eating of meat. It's a season of renunciation of the flesh in multiple ways. And then the weather more vernal wars with the wintry world, the cold ebbs and declines, the clouds lift. So we go into the spring and then into the summer, and very quickly come to the autumn and the time of harvest. Next section here. And as it does, the year is passing away and we come all the way to Michaelmas Moon, with winter threatening there, and Gawain considered soon the fell way he must fare. So the year goes by very quickly, measured by the Christian calendar, and we come back to the scene of Gawain at the court. Yet he stayed in hall with Arthur till All Saints' Day, November 1st, when Arthur provided plentifully, especially for Gawain, a rich feast and high revelry at the round table. The gallant lords and gay ladies grieved for Gawain, anxious on his account. But all the same, they mention only matters of mirthful import, joylessly joking for that gentle knight's sake. So you get the sense of suspense that's building here, because they're putting on the surface they're happy and cheerful and gay, but beneath that surface they're all terrified at what's going to happen to Gawain, and they can't think about anything else. And Gawain then decides he's going to leave and on his quest, and he then garbs himself for war, or for the journey that goes ahead. And here we have the army sequence in section 26, which I said is often part of an epic account. Here we don't have an epic, but still part of a heroic account is the arming sequence. So it's not just that they put armament on, it's described in detail, and the implements are often named. And in this case, the name of the horse is Gringolet. And he also has just like the Green Knight had his apparel, so does he. And then they show him his shield. Now, his shield can be seen as having an analogy to Achilles' shield. I think it is the Iliad, book 18. I'm not 100% certain. My memory might be failing on this, but there's a famous scene of Achilles' shield being described in great detail. Likewise, in the Aeneid, Aeneas has a shield, but that was in the underworld, and on the outside it depicts one thing, and on the inside it depicts the whole of Roman history. So famous scenes of the heroic armor, and in particular the shields. And the shield obviously protects the bearer of the shield behind it from arrows and swords and all sorts of things, but it shows other things, and it shows something of the civilization that he represents. And this one in particular is interesting. So on the outside, first of all, they showed him the shield of shining gules, with the pentacle in pure gold depicted thereon. He brandished it by the baldric, that is the leather strap behind it, which you can put over your chest, so you can put the shield on, it straps around. And about his neck he slung it in a seemly way, and it suited him well. And I intend to tell you, though I tarry therefore, why the pentacle is proper to this prince of knights. And here's why. So it's a pentangle, first of all. One, two, three, four, five. In the midst of the round shield. And it's proper to this Prince of Knights because it is a symbol which Solomon conceived once in the dream of Solomon, to betoken holy truth. Solomon renowned for his wisdom, but here wisdom and truth are allied, not like we see in the Greek tradition there, represented by Odysseus and Athena and so forth. It's to betoken holy truth by its intrinsic right, for it is a figure which has 5 points, and each line overlaps and is locked with another. Now, I drew that there. And it is endless everywhere, and the English call it, in all the land, I hear the endless knot, because you don't know where it begins and where it ends. Therefore, it goes with Sir Gawain in his gleaming armor, forever faithful in 5 things. 5 things, each in 5-fold manner. Gawain was reputed good, and, like gold well refined, he was devoid of all villainy. Every virtue displaying in the field. Thus the pentangle knew he carried on coat and shield as a man of troth, most true, and knightly name annealed. So now it's going to go into the 5 points and what they signify. First, he was found faultless in his 5 wits. So there are 5, and then there are going to be 5 fives. So 25 in total. So it's a very significant symbol that's on his shield. It's the sign of Solomon. But he had the first point, where it is here or here, it doesn't matter. But the first, he is faultless in his 5 wits. Second, next, his 5 fingers never failed the knight. And all his trust on earth was in the 5 wounds of Christ, which came to Christ on the cross. So that's 3. 5 wits, 5 fingers, 5 wounds, the wounds of Christ, as the creed tells. And whenever the bold man was busy on the battlefield, through all other things he thought on this, that his prowess all depended on, fourthly, the 5 pure joys that the Holy Queen of Heaven had of her child, Virgin Mary. Accordingly, the courteous knight had that queen's image etched on the inside of his armored shield. So that's on the outside. On the inside, there's a picture of the Virgin Mary. And when he protects himself, he lifts the shield up. He doesn't see what's on the outside. He sees what's on the inside, and he looks at her vision. So that when he beheld her, his heart did not fail. The 5th 5, I find the famous man practice were, and now he lists them as virtues, liberality and loving kindness, leading the rest. Then his continence, 3rd, and courtesy, 4th, and piety, the surpassing virtue, the 5th. So we have 5 times 5. Each point contains 5 points, and there's 20, so 25 in total. These pure 5 were more firmly fixed on that fine man, Sir Gawain, than on any other. And every multiple, each interlocking with another, had no end, being fixed to 5 points which never failed, never assembling on one side, nor sundering either, with no end at any angle, nor can I find where the design started or proceeded to its end. Thus on his shining shield this knot was shaped, royally in red gold upon red gules. That is the pure pentangle. So people who are wise are taught. Now, Gawain was ready and gay. His spear he promptly caught and gave them over all good day, forever as he thought. So the shield that he wields with the 5 points of the pentangle on it represent Gawain. It's a symbol of Gawain himself. And the points that are connected to that are identified with Gawain are closely identified with Christ, obviously. The wounds of Christ, the joys of Mary, his hands, like everything, there's an integrity about it. It's total picture of integrity. His wits, his hands, his wits. If you think about in Deuteronomy 6, it talks about teaching your children. It's the Shema. Shema, O Israel, the Lord your God is one. You shall love the Lord with all your heart, soul, and strength. And you shall teach your children. If they forget, why are you here why have you left the land of Egypt? You're to teach them this, and you're to bind it over your forehead and on your wrists and on your heart and on the doorposts and also on the city gates, those 5 places. That's what's being represented. So it's a totality connected to the love of God. Gawain represents that here. Comment or question? Or are you thinking something along those lines?
Yeah, so as opposed to Beowulf, who's given a named sword.
Yes.
Is given a shield.
Named shield.
Virtues of Christ.
Yes. And so that's interesting as well. Now, as I say, Beowulf is presented as I think a Christian author presenting a portrait of paganism, to some degree credible as pagan, and yet he's commenting on it and, insinuating certain motivations that the hero Beowulf probably is oblivious to, but making a comment on it. Here we have a much more developed Christian society. The author is Christian, and everything about the hero is supposed to be Christian. Everything to the last, and so he is a symbol of perfection himself. The shield is a symbol of perfection. You don't know where it begins, you don't know where it ends. It also represents Gawain, who represents Christ. So there's a model of imitation here, the imitatio Christi. These days the popular thing is the little yellow bracelet. What would Jesus do? WWJD. That is a sort of symbol. We have a model that we are to follow in every aspect. And that's what's in sight here. Being a Christian doesn't involve exploring your feelings and deciding what you want to tell God. It involves following the example that's been set for you by God and doing as he's done. And that's the model that's represented here. Now, Gawain is the perfect Christian knight in that sense. He's supposed to represent that. And so what we have here then is the perfect Christian knight, the representative of the court of King Arthur, which is Christ's kingdom on earth, more or less, in which sin has been banished and fought everywhere. And he's the best representative of that, going against a great monster. But we've already seen that the court of King Arthur is problematized by the Gawain author, because Arthur seems like a very proud and foolish man. And Gawain is not, having said that. So what's going to ensue in the struggle that follows? Well, we've set up the stage, then we've got the bad guy, now we've got the good guy. And very bad green man, and a very, very good whatever Gawain is. But he's got a shield, and the shield represents him. So there we have a clear portrait of good and evil in the same way that we have in Beowulf. And yet here it's given a much more clear Christian contours, I would say. I think it's pretty obvious. And it's easier to read, I think. And it's partly the structure of the poem that makes it easier to read. Right? Beowulf is, in terms of perspective, it's longer and it's more complicated. It's more challenging in some ways, and complex poem. This one is neater and more carefully crafted in every respect. This is the work of a great artist. Anyway, so he arms himself and he says, and the others are lamenting that Gawain is going to go to his death because they think so highly of him, but they think all is lost. This is what the group that he's about to leave say: by Christ, it is evil that yon lord should be lost who lives so nobly. To find this fellow on earth in faith is not easy. It would have been wiser to have worked more warily and to have dubbed the dear man a duke of the realm. A magnificent master of men he might have been known, and so had a happier fate than to be utterly destroyed. So they see the futility of Gawain riding off in order to have his head chopped off. So the court thinks that the whole exercise is futile. But Gawain is going to go anyway because he's given his word. And they know, and that's just partly why they admire him. So we have a very, very good character in Gawain riding out. Now, as he rides, through the realm of Britain. He goes upwards and he begins. Let me see if I can get a. That's good enough. Oh no. That didn't do it. Physical map? Britain around 619, Shepherd, 4, that'll be good enough. So he's going to begin down here. Oh, that blew up. He is in, it mentions Anglesey. Where is this? It's going to be up here. He's going up towards Liverpool, the River Wirral here. He's going up north through Wales. I don't see it here, but it's here somewhere. But he is riding up here north, and he will end up here towards modern-day Liverpool. That's where he is going. I can't find the names here right now, but he mentions the various places. So he's nearly nigh to northern Wales, the Isles of Anglesey, always on his left. Oh, there they are, right there. So he's going up the coast, going along here, and up towards here. Over at Holyhead to the other side into the wilderness of Wirral. Though where few dwelled, to whom God or good-hearted men gave his love. And always as he went, he asked whomever he met if they knew or had knowledge of a knight in green, or could guide him to the ground where a green chapel stood. And there was none, but said him nay, for never in their lives had they ever set eyes on someone of such a hue as green. And as he goes, he is going through dark, terrible weather, and he rode far from his friends. And so he's riding into the wilderness, a God-forsaken realm, and presented all the way back in Scripture. The wilderness is a place where God is not present. Just like when Moses is sent into the wilderness, the people for 40 years, this is a place of temptation and trial. Likewise, when Jesus goes into the wilderness to be tempted for 40 days, this is a place where the devil resides to some degree. The scapegoat is, hands are put on it and is driven into the wilderness. He's being driven to the devil, more or less. And that's what's going on here. As he goes, he's going through a God-forsaken land. And he rode far from his friends, a forsaken man, scaling many cliffs. And as he goes along, he meets all sorts of monsters, Beowulf-like. What does he meet there? Well, it would be, if I told the whole story, it would be too tedious to tell a tenth of them. He had death struggles with dragons, did battle with wolves, warred with wild men who dwelt among the crags, battled with bulls and bears and boars at other times, and ogres that panted after him on the high fells. Had he not been doughty in endurance and dutiful to God, doubtless he would have been done to death time and again. So he's already going through huge trials just to get to where the Green Chapel is, and nobody knows where it is, for that matter. And it is cold, and worse, the winter, as he goes, and until the night covered the country till Christmas Eve alone, and he that eventide to Mary made his moan, and begged her be his guide till some shelter should be shown. Merrily in the morning by a mountain he rode into a wondrously wild wooded cleft with high hogue, and the gallant knight and Gringlet galloped under them through many a swamp and marsh, a man all alone, fearing lest he should fail. He doesn't care about the obstacles. He doesn't care about the suffering. He cares about fulfilling his oath. He's not going to find the Green Chapel. And then he will fail as a knight because he's promised. He's given his word. Fearing lest he should fail through adverse fortune to see the service of him who that same night was born of a bright maiden to banish our strife, Christ. And so sighing, he said, I beseech thee, Lord, and thee, Mary, mildest mother, so dear, that in some haven with due honor I may hear mass and matins tomorrow morning. Meekly I ask it, and promptly thereto I pray my Pater and Ave and Creed. He crossed himself and cried for his sins and said, Christ speed my cause, his cross my guide. So praying he, spurring his seat. Thrice the sign of his Savior on himself he made. He crosses himself 3 times. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. 3 times crosses himself. When in the wood, he was aware of a dwelling with the mote. So now, having prayed, he sees. And what does he see? He sees a castle with a drawbridge, and he goes over it. And so there's a sort of a revelation here responding to his prayer. And he's hailed by a porter who greets him. And the porter, I'll just read the exchange. Good sir, said Gawain, will you give my message to the high lord of this house that I ask for lodging? Yes, by St. Peter, replied the porter, and I think you may lodge here as long as you like, sir knight. Then away he went eagerly and swiftly returned with a host of well-wishers to welcome the knight. They let down the drawbridge and in a dignified way came out and did honor to him, kneeling courteously on the cold ground to accord him worthily welcome. So he receives for the first time the welcome of a civilized place and the first comfort that he receives. And he meets the lord of the manor. And the lord of the manor welcomes him, says he can stay as long as he likes, and offers to have a meal with him the next morning with his wife. And they will have a little bargain in the process. You go to bed, you sleep in, you stay in as long as you want. I'm going to go on a hunt. And moreover, let us make a bargain that whatever I win in the woods be yours, and any achievement you chance on here, you exchange for it. Sweet sir, truly swear to such a bartering, whether fair fortune or foul befall from it. So you go away hunting, and I get to stay in and sleep and stay in the castle, and you're going to give me whatever you get from your hunting, and I will give you whatever falls upon me in the castle in return. Is that a bargain? Deal. Okay. By God, said Sir Good Gawain, I agree to that, and I am happy that you have an eye to sport. Then that prince of that people said, what pledge of wine is brought to seal the bargain? And they burst out laughing. Oh, we get to drink too. This is great. They took drink and toyed and trifling talk, these lords and ladies, as long as they liked. And then with French refinement and many fair words, they stood softly speaking to say good night, kissing as they parted company in courtly style. So the courtly love context here is clear. This is a very courteous place. He's left the court of King Arthur. He's come to another place that's just as courteous. It's just like being back home in this court. And in that faint light, the lord of the manor goes out and he goes on a hunt. And what is he hunting? The first hunt is a deer. There's going to be 3 hunts, by the way. Remember the 3 monsters? I said it's characteristic of medieval literature that there's a repetition of the 3, and there's a 3-fold significance to the 3 often, and so forth. We've already seen how they love the 5, and the 5 times 5. We're going to have the 3 hunting scenes here, and with it a beast represented by it. And the first beast that is represented is a deer, line 2 here, but also reference to the harts, and the male deer, and also the hinds, the female deer. It's a deer hunt. Now, in medieval heraldry, beasts represent certain attributes. And there's something called the Aberdeen Bestiary. Let's see if I can find this here. I'll get your question in a sec. Which is a magnificent manuscript in which it will depict all manner of things. So this is a collection of things here. Let's see if I can. And it depicts, so this is from the creation of the world. the bestiary. But then it depicts all manner of, let's see if I can find anything weird and wonderful. So Adam naming the animals being depicted here. It will depict all sorts of things like dragons and serpents and deer, and connected with those will be certain attributes. Certain beasts are noble to hunt and others less so. Did you want to comment before I move on with my... Yes. Yes. No, it's not common knowledge because common people don't read. So books that are written in this period are written by scribes for scribes, if they're going to be writing them at all. And so the significance given to numbers and symbols and so forth would assume an audience that is acquainted with the significance of the numbers and the symbols. And it's not meant for common folk. Having said that, it's written in Middle English. It's not written in Latin. This is not, right? So that suggests a sort of a more common purpose to it than you would suspect. It's not an ecclesiastical book. It's not written for church. But it is written by monks and those who would have been able to write and would have been able to afford the implements of writing. And that includes, the material to write, but also what they're written on. It's expensive to have manuscripts of any sort, especially some so beautiful as this. They're adorned. It would take huge amounts of time. And not only would you have to produce them, then you'd have to store them. You'd have to have a place to house them. So it would be wealthy aristocrat types that would have commissioned it or would have given the support to allow it to be produced. But yeah, so it is a more sophisticated form of text, and just because it's written in medieval English, you should not assume that it is written for the common folk. I don't think so. But it has a Christian message, and as I showed you the first picture here, Tolkien compiles it alongside Pearl and Sir Orfeo, and Pearl is a very Christian poem again, and Sir Orfeo furthermore. And he translates both of them, or gives us a rendering of them at any rate. Does that help answer the question a bit? So there's a highly exegetically complicated reading of normal things. Even like a deer. A deer is not just a deer. A deer is now a heraldic, when I say heraldic, like a herald, it has a meaning and a connection to it. It's a noble beast. You go on a deer hunt. To this day, you'll find that deer are things that people happily hunt. They're good to eat. And they're a noble quarry. There's no shame in hunting deer. Deer, if you don't hunt deer, then deer get too plentiful, and then they start getting diseased, and they start eating up things, and they proliferate, and then it creates problems as well. So you're just managing the deer population. And when they do this, they're only going after certain of the deer. They're going after the bucks with a certain number of antlers, and they've prohibited meddling with male deer in the months of close season because that's breeding season. If you kill them before that, then it's going to have a devastating environmental effect. So you're going after a particular type of deer as noble quarry for noblemen. That's the first hunt. So, and it has a significance, not only the deer, but the quarry and what it connotes. And it connotes a sort of a noble fight. Now remember, we said, and the host made a bargain with Gawain that what he hunts by day, he'll give to Gawain in return for what happens to Gawain while he's back in the castle. So this is given in some detail here. I'll skip over the length of this, but it's presented fairly heavily. But while he is out deer hunting, the good man Gawain in his gay bed lay hidden till the light of day gleamed on the walls. Oh, he's having a little sleeping in nice and late. Well, he's been riding for months in the cold and battling all sorts of beasts, so I guess he deserves to have a little extra sleep. And he's in his bed with the curtains closed. Now imagine one of those beds, I don't know if you've seen them, with the 4 posters, and he's got curtains around the bed. You know what I mean by a 4-poster bed with the curtain? So you have to pull them aside to get it and see the person inside the bed, and he's closed them. So it's a noble bed. It's not just anybody, it's an aristocrat's bed. And he is inside this, and as in slumber he slept, there slipped into his mind a slight suspicious sound. And the door stealthily opened. He raised up his head out of the bedclothes, caught up the corner of the curtain a little, and watched warily towards it to see what it was. It was the lady. Oh, I hadn't even introduced her yet. But anyway, never mind, I'm not going to backtrack now. Although I'll say this. The lady has been introduced along with an old lady. And the old lady, I mean, it's almost worth going back, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to refrain from doing it. The old lady it's Beauty and the Beast, more or less. The lady is so beautiful that she bears comparison to Guinevere. In fact, Gawain thinks she's more beautiful than Guinevere. Whereas the lady by her is everything that lady is not. She's short, fat, dark, ugly. She's got hair coming out of her face. And he doesn't know what to make of her, other than that everyone seems to show some sort of reverence for the old fat hag. Because that's pretty much how she's presented. But this is the lady. And the lady is the wife of the lord of the manor. And she's crept into his bedroom. And so we're like, oh. Courtly love, tradition. The nobleman's wife, the nobleman, what's going to happen next? Well, in the courtly love tradition, we know exactly what's going to happen. However, Sir Gawain, who is the picture of Christian courtesy, is going to have to engage with the expectations of the courtly love tradition and act differently. He can't sleep with the Lord's wife. But what if she comes to him? And who's hunting whom? Because there's another hunt going on here. It was the lady loveliest to look upon who secretly and silently secured the door, then bore towards his bed. The brave knight, embarrassed. Why is he embarrassed? Well, one, she's come into his bedroom, but secondly, he's not wearing any clothes. They don't have pajamas. He's under the bedclothes. But he's covered, like it's cold there. They don't have heating either. He's under the bedclothes, but otherwise he's got nothing on and he can't get out. She's come in, he's stuck there, and he's embarrassed, lay flat with fine adroitness and feigned sleep. Maybe she'll go away. Silently she stepped on, stole to his bed, caught up the curtain, crept within, and seated herself softly on the side of the bed. There she watched a long while, waiting for him to wake. Slyly close, this long while the night, considering in his soul this circumstance, its sense and likely sequel, for it seemed marvellous, still, it would be more circumspect, he said to himself, to speak and discover her desire in due course. So he stirred, oh, there you are. Twisting towards her, opened his eyes and acted as if astounded, and to seem the safer by such service, crossed himself in dread. With chin and cheeks so fair, white range with rosy red, with laughing lips and air of love, she lightly said, "Good morning, Sir Gawain." No, anyway, yeah, what a terrible falsetto voice. But she's all cheerfulness and light. Oh, good morning, Sir Gawain. It's like, think of Disney type things. The gay one murmured, "How unsafely you sleep, that one may slip in here. Now you are taken in a trice. Unless a truce come between us, I shall bind you to your bed. Of that be sure." And you're like, the comedy is fantastic. The lady uttered laughingly those playful words. Now, here's the situation. You already see part of the situation, but think of the complexity of the situation. Gawain is the picture of a courteous Christian knight. The one thing he cannot do is obvious. He can have no relations with the woman. That's obvious. But the second thing he can't do is be discourteous to her. He can't say, "What are you doing in here? Get out Get lost. What's wrong with you? You can't insinuate that she has any motives that are unseemly, because that would upset her and be discourteous. He has to be polite and act as if there's nothing going on here, even though it's plain there's something going on here. Yeah. So so that's part of the comic appeal of this. He has to be courteous at all times. You're just acting like a lady and I'm acting like a gentleman, and I'll pretend that this context is not happening. And she, on the other hand, knows that he has to be courteous, and she's just going to keep pushing and make him be discourteous. Is he going to give ground, and is he going to be discourteous? No, he is not. So how does he get her to go away is the question then. But she says, Gawain blithely greeted her. Good morning, my good lady. Do with me as you will, that well pleases me, for I surrender speedily and sue for grace, which to my mind, since I must, is much the best course. And thus he repaid her with repartee and ready laughter. Nothing going on here. But if, lovely lady, your leave were forthcoming, and were you pleased to free your prisoner and pray him to rise, I would abandon my bed for a better habiliment, and have more happiness in our honey talk. Nay, verily, fine sir, urged the voice of that sweet one, you shall not budge from your bed. I have a better idea. I shall hold you fast here on this other side as well, and so chat on with the chevalier my chains have caught. For I know well, my knight, that your name is Sir Gawain, whom all the world worships wherever he ride. For lords and their ladies and all living folk hold your honor in high esteem and your courtesy. And now here you are truly, and we are utterly alone. My lord and his liegemen are a long way off. Others still bide in their beds, and my bower maidens too. Shut fast and firmly with a fine hasp is the door. She's locked the door with a hasp. From the inside, nobody's going to interfere. Nobody's coming in. And since I have in this house him who pleases all, as long as my time lasts, I shall lingering in talk take my fill. My young body is yours, do with it what you will. By strong necessities force me to be your servant. Still, gulp. Total reversal of the normal courtly love scene. He's not pursuing her, she's pursuing him. But he has to act as if this is not happening. He can't offend her. Remember, he is required to be perfect at all times. But note that the Gawain poet is presenting this delightfully so that we're all sensing the tension and the humor in the scene. Really well told. I mean, you can't help but find it amusing. In good truth, my body's here. Well, how is he supposed to take that? In any way that is flattering to the young lady, as a Christian young lady. There's no way. But Gawain, in good truth, that is gain indeed, though I am hardly the hero of whom you speak. Okay, so you said I was the one that everyone praised. Well, I'm not that good. So rather than offend her, I will talk about how she overpraised me and I don't deserve all that. To be held in such honor as you here suggest, I am altogether unworthy. I own it freely. By God, I should be glad if you granted it right. For me to essay by speech or some other service the pleasure, such a perfect lady. Okay, there he is, courtly lover. It's not me who's perfect, it's you who's perfect. Pure joy it would be. In good truth, Sir Gawain, the gay lady replied, if I slighted or set at naught your spotless fame or your all-pleasing prowess, it would show poor breeding. But there is no lack of ladies who would love, noble one, to hold you in their arms as I have you here. So she is the pursuer. And it's as if he's the woman. So many ladies would love to hold you in your arms, and Gawain's like, he's totally passive. She's hunting him. It's like she has all of the power, he's got none. He's stuck in his bed, he can't move, he can only use his words. It's great. And linger in the luxury of your delightful discourse, which would perfectly pleasure them and appease their woes, rather than have riches of the red gold they own. But as I love that Lord, the celestial ruler, I have wholly in my hand what all desire through his grace. Not loath was she to allure this fair lady of face, but the knight with speeches pure answered in each case, Madam, said the merry man, may Mary requite you. Oh, I'll mention the Blessed Virgin Mary here at this point. For in good faith I have found in you free-hearted generosity. Certain men for their deeds receive esteem from others. Anyway, on and on and on and on. She thrusts, he parries, she says this, he moves here. It's a dance, and she is chasing him. The hunt scene with the deer lasted 1 or 2 at the most section. This goes on and on. This is a long hunt. And at the end of all this, she gives up, gives him goodbye, glinting with laughter, and standing up, astounded him with these strong words. May he who prospers every speech for this pleasure reward you. I cannot bring myself to believe that you could be Gawain. What? What have I done wrong? How so, said the knight, speaking urgently, for he feared he had failed to observe the forms of courtesy. But the beauteous one blessed him and brought out this argument. Such a great man as Gawain is granted to be, the very vessel of virtue and fine courtesy, could scarcely have stayed such a sojourn with a lady without craving a kiss out of courtesy. Sheesh. Touched by some trifling hint at the tail end of his speech. So be it as you say, then, said Gawain, I shall kiss at your command as becomes a knight who fears to offend you. No further plea is needed. Whereupon she approached him and penned him in her arms. So again, it's just like, grabs him and gives him a kiss. Then they commended each other to Christ in comely style. And without more words, she went out by the door. He made ready to rise with rapid haste, summoned his servants, selected his garb, walked down when he was dressed debonairly to mass. Then he went to the well-served meal which awaited him and made merry sport till the moon rose at night. Never was baron bold so taken by ladies bright, the young one and the old. They throve all three in delight. Okay, so first hunt scene, bedroom and outside the bedroom. And we get the scene of two theaters of conflict, one a physical conflict, the other of a spiritual conflict, obviously, with the courtly love conventions in the background of the spiritual conflict. Gawain required by the courtly love tradition to be the courteous knight at all times, acting as if she were his moral superior, and this portrait of feminine beauty, of innocence, etc., even while she acts like a predator. Pretty much. Right? Delightful scene. Delightful in the sense of humorous. And at the end of it all, the part of the bargain is that at the end of the day, they exchange what they've received during the day. So the Lord gives him, here you go, the deer. Gawain gives what in return? Little kiss. And he says, what? Where on earth did that come from? Where did you get that from? Said Gawain, for my true gains in this great house, I am not loath to allow must belong to you. And he put his arms around his handsome neck, hugging him and kissed him in the comeliest way he could think of, except my taking, sir, for I received no more. Gladly would I grant them, however great they were. And therefore I thank you. The Thane said, good. Yours may be the better gift. You would break it to me where your wisdom won you the wealth of that kind. You got a kiss? Where'd you get the kiss? Who gave you the kiss? Gawain, no clause in our contract. Request nothing else. Said the other, you have your due. Ask more, none should. They laughed in blithe assent with worthy words and good. Then to supper they swiftly went to fresh, delicious food. Okay. First day. Each has got what they asked for according to their little agreement. And the next day, day 2 of the hunt, Lord comes out and he is hunting. And what is he hunting for? Well, the hounds are running and they're chasing. And what do they have here? They have an enormous Boar. Do we have this? And the boar is a wild boar. And a wild boar, if many people have read Tolkien or heard Tolkien, it's a pig, but it's not a pig like any other pig. These are enormous beasts, 500 or more pounds, with huge tusks. And the tusks, well, we've seen that from the Odyssey already, are so fierce that, and so sharp that they can run you through, just cut you to ribbons. And more to that, a boar has a really bad temper. And if you're hunting it, you'll find that it's actually hunting you. They're really nasty, and they'll come out and rush you. And of course, boars will also eat meat. So they'll eat you too. Not what you expect. You're hunting a pig. This is no pig. This is a wild boar, and a wild boar is a nasty, dangerous creature. So it's a very different type of animal day 2 than it was in day 1. It's less noble as quarry in many ways. But it's certainly more dangerous. And the hunt goes on, and they go after it. And I've already skipped over most of it. But they kill it, and the lady comes in. Same sort of thing goes on. The end of day 2, what does she get from Gawain? Or vice versa? 2 kisses. Second pass, yes.
What does the boar represent? How great compared to the deer?
I'm not entirely sure. It represents something fearsome. It's still noble quarry. It's just less noble. It's less noble, but it's still something that people will hunt and be considered worthy of hunting. The third day is different, and the third quarry is one that you are probably more familiar with in terms of English aristocracy and hunting, namely a fox. Now, a fox and fox hunting is a great English tradition with foxhounds and so forth. You chase the fox. The fox has entirely different heraldic significance. Symbol of the devil. The aristocrats hunt the fox to rid the devil from the land of England entirely. Foxes are vermin. They're not like deer. They're not like boars. These are vermin. What foxes do, they basically raid hen houses, and when they go into the hen house, they kill everything in it. They don't just eat a chicken. They'll take one chicken, but they'll kill all the other chickens while they're there and destroy utterly everything. So they're regarded as vermin by hunters, and hunters hate foxes. They might have a nice, beautiful pelt, but there's no goodness in this creature. It's thought to be something that you want to kill and destroy. It's only evil. So it's a symbol of evil. In that sense, it's a lot like the dragon in Beowulf. Only in that sense. It's not a symbol of implacable evil per se, but it is a symbol of the devil. And that's why it's hunted. And in the process of hunting it, you are doing something that goes beyond a mere hunt. There's a supernatural aspect to it. So let me skip over that. They come to it day 2. I'll skip over that. And for twice I've tested you, and twice found you true. Now, third time throw best. Think of that tomorrow. Let us make merry while we can. Set our hearts on joy. For hard fate can hit man whenever it likes. This was graciously granted, and Gawain stayed. So they drank again. They slept again. And after mass, he and his men made a small meal. Merry was the morning. He demanded his horse. The men were ready mounted before the main gate. Host of knightly horsemen to follow them. Wonderfully fair. And off they go. And as they go, they're after the fox. The fox's track. And the fox is extremely foxy in the sense that it'll backtrack. It's so smart. that it knows that the hounds are after his trail, the scent of his trail, and it will go along a trail, and then it will backtrack along its same steps so that it doesn't that the hounds are thrown off his trail. Very sly. Consider the stratagem had given the slip to the hounds, and he'll go through the water, all that sort of thing. He knows that the tracking dogs are after him, and he can outfox the tracking dogs. But at any rate, they eventually get him, and his name is Reynard. Now, Reynard Fox is a figure represented in medieval literature as, I say, a symbol of the devil. Often associated with Jewish people as well, I'll add. Without getting into that, but that idea of the betrayers of Christ, etc. The German poet Goethe writes a work called Reinhard Fuchs. Fuchs is German for fox. And it's sort of a Jewish Shylock type figure. Anyway, but here it's just connected with a medieval heraldic beast, and he is hard to hunt and hard to kill. And while he does this, Gawain is back. And Gawain at this point is very unsettled, because on the second day, he finds that it's very hard to hold the lady off without upsetting her, offending her, and preserving his integrity. He's finding it very hard. So he wants out. He wants to leave rather than face day 3. He wants to get out of there, and he's not allowed to go. He heaved himself out of dreams and answered hurriedly. The lovely lady advanced, laughing adorably, swooped over his splendid face and sweetly kissed him. He welcomed her wordly with noble cheer, and gazing on her gay and glorious attire, her features so faultless and fine of complexion, he felt a flush of rapture suffuse his heart. Uh-oh. He's liking that kiss a bit too much. Sweet and genial smiling slid them into joy, till bliss burst forth between them, beaming gay and bright. With joy the two contended in talk of true delight, and peril would have impended had Mary not minded her knight. He has supernatural aid. For that peerless princess pressed him so hotly, so invited him to the very verge, that he felt forced either to allow her love or blackguardly rebuff her, to treat her like a callous man and just tell her to get off and offend her. He was concerned for his courtesy, lest he be called caitiff, villain, but more especially for his evil plight if he should plunge into sin and dishonor the owner of the house treacherously. God shield me. That shall not happen for sure, said the knight. So with laughing, loving talk, he deflected gently the downright declarations that dropped from her lips. Said the beauty to the bold man, blame will be yours if you love not the living body lying close to you, more than all the wooers in the world who are wounded in heart, unless you have a lover more beloved, who delights you more, a maiden to whom you are committed, so immutably bound that you do not seek to sever from her, which I see is so. Tell me the truth of it, I entreat you now. By all the loves there are, do not hide the truth with guile. Then gently, by St. John, said the knight with a smile, St. John the evangelist, renowned for his truth, I owe my oath to none, nor wish to yet a while. So there isn't another woman. Those words to the fair woman are the worst there could be. But I am truly answered to my utter anguish. Give me now a gracious kiss, and I shall go from here, as a maid that loves much, mourning on this earth. Then sighing, she stooped and seemingly kissed him, and severing herself from him, stood up and said, at this adieu, my dear one, do me this pleasure. Give me something as gift, your glove, if no more, and to mitigate my mourning when I remember you. Now, certainly for your sake, said the knight, I wish I had here the handsomest thing I own. For you have deserved, forsooth, superabundantly. and rightfully a richer reward than I could give. But as tokens of true love, trifles mean little. It is not to your honor to have at this time a mere glove as Gawain's gift to treasure, for I am here on an errand in unknown regions. I have no bondsmen, no baggages with dear-bought things in them. This afflicts me now, fair lady, for your sake. Man must do as he must, neither lament it nor repine. Okay? Though gift you give me none, you must have something of mine. Okay, so they exchange gifts. Now, you've seen that the exchange of gift is always a part of covenants. Giving rings and receiving tokens in response, this is a part of, again, courteous behavior, but it's also a sign of some sort of covenant between them. He doesn't really want to give her the glove because a glove is a sign of his affection. He doesn't want to give her the glove because that would already be a discourtesy. He's suggesting something that's there that is not there. She wants to give him something. He doesn't want to take anything from her for the same reason. But she's suggesting that she do it. So she offers a rich ring. Uh-oh. He doesn't want a ring from her. Rich ring, wrought in red gold with the sparkling stone set conspicuously on it. You may well believe its worth was wonderfully great. The courteous man declined it and quickly said, before God, gracious lady, no giving just now. Not having anything to offer, I shall accept nothing. I can't give you anything back, so I'm not giving you anything. I'm going to take anything. Put off by this repulse, she presently said, if you reject my ring as too rich in value, doubtless you would be less deeply indebted to me if I gave you my girdle. Her girdle? Yep. Keeps up her stockings. These days we have pantyhose. You pull them all the way up, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. They have stockings, and they're held by a what do we call them? Suspenders. We call them suspenders. Actually, the English call them suspenders. We call these things on your chest as suspenders. In Britain, they call the things that hold up your pantyhose suspenders, which is very funny if you go to Britain and say, I want to wear my suspenders. And they're like, oh, really? Okay. It's something about you I didn't know there. Anyway, the suspenders from the girdle hold up the socks or something of that sort. And anyway, if I give you my girdle, so it's under under her other clothing, you're not going to see it. And you think, well, why would I want your girdle? Well, here's why. A less gainful gift, she slipped off the cincture of her gown, which went around her waist under the wonderful mantle, a girdle of green silk with a golden hem, embroidered only at the edges with hand-stitched ornament. And she pleaded with the prince in a pleasant manner to take it, notwithstanding its trifling worth. But he told her he could not touch no treasure at all, not gold nor any gift till God gave him grace to pursue the success of the search he was on. And she says that he won't take it, but she prevails upon him, because this is no ordinary girdle. This is a magic girdle. And the magic girdle has a particular virtue to it, which is that it lends you invulnerability to any sort of sharp instrument. You can't be harmed. Do you say no to this silk? Then said the beauty, because it is simple in itself, and so it seems, though it is little indeed, and so less worth your esteem. But one who is aware of the worth twined in it would appraise its properties as more precious, perhaps. For the man that binds his body with this belt of green, as long as he laps it closely about him, no hero under heaven can hack him to pieces. For he cannot be killed by any cunning on earth. Then the prince pondered, and it appeared to him a precious gem to protect him in the peril appointed him, when he gained the green chapel to be given checkmate. It would be a splendid stratagem to escape being slain. Then he allowed her to solicit him and let her speak. She pressed the belt upon him with potent words, and having got his agreement, she gave it him gladly, beseeching him for her sake to conceal it always. For my sake, don't show or tell anyone. And hide it from her husband with all due diligence, and that never should another know of it. The noble swore outright. Okay, so here we go. Then often his thanks gave he with all his heart and might, And thrice by then, said she, kissed the consonant. So he gets 3 kisses. Okay, so what happens next? Exchange of gifts. Fox for the one. For the other in return, what does he get? What does he get? 3 kisses. What else? Nothing. Why? He's told the lady he won't tell her husband. He's given his word. Why is he given his word? Sorry?
He doesn't want to be not courteous.
He doesn't want to fail to be courteous towards her. She's asked him to. He's agreed to it. However, by doing that, it's one word against another word, because he swore to the Lord he'll give up everything that he's received during the day. And what he received during the day was the green girdle. He doesn't give that up. So he's true to his word twice, except in being true to his word to the lady, he's not being true to his word to the Lord. And he doesn't give up the girdle either. And this is his undoing. He's no longer the perfect Christian knight at this point. Yes? Well, that's what's going to come up in the 4th fit. That's exactly why. He's afraid for his life, which is also a sign that he's less than a perfect knight. Christ says that what manner of love is this, that a man lays down his life for his friends? Right? So bearing the cross of Christ means not being afraid of laying down your life in this for the faith, for the sake of fidelity to God. And Sir Gawain in the end fears for his life from this green monster. So there's twofold things, in a sense. There's the breaking of his word with the Lord and not giving him what he told. But the reason you're correct is because he's afraid. And they move on to the next scene. And the next scene is when Gawain leaves the Green Chapel to find the Green Knight, because now we're getting to the point where his time is up and he still doesn't know where the Green Knight is. They hold a requiem for Reynard's soul, Reynard the fox, and the commotion made it the merriest meet ever. Men said the hounds must have their fee. They pat them on the head, they then hold the fox, and he is reft of his skin of red. They skin him. And then they set off for home. And Gawain himself has been skinned. But as he goes along, he calls, I think there's a big jump here. I've just skipped over. I don't see the line numbers there, so that's frustrating. But he's wearing a turquoise tunic, ironically, because the Virgin Mary is often wearing blue. Blue is a sign of fidelity. He's wearing a blue robe at the time when he's unfaithful. Now it's already a fraudulent presentation of himself to the world. He's being a hypocrite. Anyway, as he goes on, he rides and he goes towards a crag and the chapel green. And as he says, he hears a sound. And the sound is as a great scythe being ground on a grindstone there. He hears a noise on the other side of a hill. He goes around the hill, and what does he see? Well, first he speaks, cries out, "Who holds sway here and has an assignation with me? For the good knight Gawain is on the ground here. If anyone there wants anything, wend your way hither fast and further your needs either now or not at all." "Bide there," said the one on the bank above his head, "and you shall swiftly receive what I once swore to give you." Yet for a time he continued his tumult of scraping. He's got a whetstone. He's working it around and he's sharpening the axe on the whetstone. Then he thrust himself around a thick crag, around a hole, whirling around a wedge of rock with a frightful weapon, a Danish axe. So there it is again, the big two-headed axe with a long handle. Duly honed for dealing the blow, with a broad biting edge, bow bent down the blade, ground on a grindstone, a great 4-foot blade. That's not a small blade. 4-foot blade. It's huge. No less by that Lovelace gleaming so brightly, and the gallant in green was garbed as at first, his looks and limbs the same, his locks and beard, save that steadily on his feet he strode on the ground. So unlike before when he was on the horse, now he's on the ground. And he's all green. It's clear it's the same fellow. And he advances towards Gawain to greet the knight, not bowing low. The man said, "Sir, so sweet your honor the tryst you owe." "Gawain," said the Green Knight, "may God guard you. You are welcome to my dwelling, I warrant you. And you have timed your travel here as a true man ought. You know plainly the pact we pledged between us. This time, a 12-month ago, you took your portion. And now, at this new year, I should nimbly requite you. And we are on our own here in this valley with no seconds to sunder us. There's nobody here to intervene. Spar as we will, take your helmet off your head and have your payment here, and offer no more argument or action than I did when you whipped off my head with one stroke." "No," said Gawain, "by God, you gave me a soul. The grievous gash to come I grudge you not at all. Strike but the one stroke, and I shall stand still and offer you no hindrance. You may act freely, I swear." Head bent, Sir Gawain bowed and showed the bright flesh bare. He behaved as if uncowed, being loath to display care. Brave, brave, brave. Then the gallant in green quickly got ready, heaved his horrid weapon to hit Gawain with all the brute force in his body, bearing it aloft, swinging savagely enough to strike him dead. Had it driven down as direly as he aimed, the daring, dauntless man would have died from the blow. But Gawain glanced up at the grim axe beside him as it came shooting through the shivering air to shatter him, and his shoulders shrank slightly from the sharp edge because he's about to lose his head. The other suddenly stayed the descending axe and then reproved the prince with many proud words. Oh, so it goes like this, and then he stops and he sees that he flinches and he says, I'm going to taunt you. And so mockery, mockery, flighting, flighting, flighting. "You're not Gawain," said the gallant, "whose greatness is such that by hill or hollow no army ever frightened him. For now you flinch for fear before you feel harm. I never did know that knight to be a coward. I neither flinched nor fled when you let fly your blow, nor offered any quibble in the house of King Arthur. My head flew to my feet, but flee I did not. Yet you quail cravenly, though unscathed so far. So I am bound to be called the better man, therefore." Gawain, of course, is furious. "Not again shall I flinch as I did before, but if my head pitched to the plain, it's off forevermore." He's saying, there's a difference between us. You knew when you had your head cut off it wasn't going to do anything. I'm done. I'm dead. This is not fair. But be brisk, man, by your faith, and bring me to the point. Deal me my destiny, and do it out of hand, for I shall stand your stroke, not starting at all, till your axes hit me. Here's my oath on it." "Have at you, then," said the other, heaving up his axe, behaving as angrily as if he were mad. And down he goes, and before he does so, he stops a second time. Then said Gawain, storming with sudden rage, "Thrash on, you thrustful fellow, you threaten too much. It seems your spirit is struck with self-dread. Forsooth," the other said, "you speak so fiercely. I will no longer lengthen matters by delaying your business, I vow." He stood astride to smite, lips pouting, puckered brow. No wonder he lacked delight, who expected no help now. Up went the axe at once and hurtled down straight at the naked neck with its knife edge, that it swung down savagely. Slight was the wound, a mere snick on the side, so that the skin was broken. Through the fair fat to the flesh fell the blade, and over his shoulders the shimmering blood shot to the ground. When Sir Gawain saw his gore glinting on the snow, he leapt, feet close, together a spear's length away, hurriedly heaved his helmet on his head, and shrugging his shoulders, shot his shield to the front, swung out his bright sword, and said fiercely, for never had the knight, since being nursed by his mother, been so buoyantly happy, so blithe in this world. Cease your blows, sir. Strike me no more. I have sustained a stroke here unresistingly, and if you offer any more, I shall earnestly reply, unresisting, rest assured, with the most rancorous despite. The single stroke is wrought, to which we pledged our plight in high King Arthur's court. Enough now, therefore, knight. Okay, so the bargain's done. They both got the blow. One took off the other's head. The one got a nick in the neck. Okay, so it seems he has been preserved. But now the cat comes out of the bag. Everything is now coming out. He comes back and he says, I promised a stroke, which you receive, consider yourself paid. I cancel all their obligations. Fair enough. And yet there's a method to what just happened. First, in foolery, I made a feint at striking, not rending you with a riving cut, and right I was on account of the first night's covenant we accorded. Huh? The first night? What are you talking about? The man who's the Green Knight is actually the Lord of the Manor. And he just had the 3 days hunt, and he's giving him the 3 passes in accordance and in justice for what's happened on those 3 nights. So the first night, for truthfully you kept your word in troth with me. Again, reference to troth. All importance of troth. Giving me your gains as a good man should. The further fainted blow is for the following day, when you kissed my comely wife. And the kisses came to me. For those 2 things harmlessly I thrust twice at you fainted blows. Truth, for truth's the word. No need for dread, God knows. From your failure at the 3rd, the tap you took arose. For the failure, that's why you get the neck and the neck. For that braided belt you wear belongs to me. I am well aware that my own wife gave it to you. Your conduct and your kissings are completely known to me. And the wooing by my wife, my work set it on. I instructed her to try you, and you truly seem to be the most perfect paladin ever to pace the earth. As the pearl to the white pea in precious worth, so in good faith is Gawain to other gay knights. But here your faith failed you. You flagged somewhat, sir, yet it was not for a well-wrought thing, nor for the wooing either, but for love of your life, which is less blameworthy. The other strong man stood considering this a while. So he doesn't, that's it. I've given you a neck, and so you're not perfect. But I'm not going to do anything more because I don't blame you for valuing your life. But what's the consequence for Gawain? So the judgment of the pagan world, the pagan man, the green man, is that Gawain has done what any man would do in the situation, which is to value his life. And there's no blame in that. But how about for Gawain? Gawain realizes that he's totally undone here. He realizes the ethical significance of what's just happened and the consequences for him as the perfect representation of Christ. The other strong man stood considering this a while, so filled with fury that his flesh trembled, and the blood from his breast burst forth in his face as he shrunk for shame at what the Chevalier spoke of. The first words the fair knight could frame were, curses on cowardice and covetousness. Their vice and villainy are virtue's undoing. Then he took the knot with a twist, twitched it loose, and fiercely flung the fair girdle to the knight. Lo, there's the false thing. Foul fortune befall it. I was craven about our encounter, and cowardice taught me to accord with covetousness and corrupt my nature and the liberality and loyalty belonging to chivalry. Now I am faulty and false and found fearful always. In the train of treachery and untruth go woe and shame. I acknowledge, knight, how ill I behaved, and take the blame. Award what penance you will, henceforth I'll shun ill fame. So his response is far stronger, like of a magnitude greater. He's much harder on himself. And the other lord laughed and politely said, in my view, you've made amends for your misdemeanor. You've confessed your faults fully and with fair acknowledgement and plainly done penance at the point of my axe. You were absolved of your sin and as stainless now as if you'd never fallen in fault since first you were born. For as for the gold hemmed girdle, I give it to you, sir, seeing it is as green as my gown. Sir Gawain, you may think that this trial when you throng in company with paragons of princes, for it is a perfect token as knightly gatherings. By the way, it came to him from, and I'm thinking that this little excerpt from it has cut the passage out here. Oh no, there it is. This was orchestrated by Morgan Le Fay, the dumpy old hag, Arthur's sister. She's a witch. And she orchestrated the whole plot as a spite to get at King Arthur. He's Sir Bertilac de Haute there, but it was all orchestrated by Morgan Le Fay, Arthur's, I think, half-sister. And with the many magical arts of Merlin. And so Morgan the goddessly, she became the proud she can oppress to her purposeful fame. And she sent me forth in this form to test the pride of your house, of Arthur's house, and the reputation for high renown of the Round Table. She bewitched me in this weird way to bewilder your wits and to grieve Guinevere and goad her to death. With ghastly fear of that ghost ghoulish speaking with his head in his hand before the high table. That is the aged beldame who is at home. She is indeed your own aunt, Arthur's half-sister, daughter of the Duchess of Tintagel, who in due course, by Uther, the mother was mother of Arthur, who now holds sway. Therefore I beg you, bold sir, come back to your aunt. Make merry in my house, for my men love you, and by my faith, brave sir, I bear you as much goodwill as I grant any man under God for your great honesty. But Gawain refuses the final. No, with a no. I am not going back. I will not acknowledge it. So he goes back riding on Gringlet to the Round Table, and what does he decide to do as penance? Now there's no penance being put upon him by the Green Knight, but Gawain decides, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to wear across my chest the green girdle as a sign of my shame. That's my penance. I will not go back and be greeted as a hero. I will wear with shame this green sash across my chest. And so he goes back and is received by the court. And what does the court do in response to this? Do they recognize that the perfection, the Christian perfection of the court has been besmirched by Gawain's actions? And do they think that Gawain has been shamed and they along with him? No. They say, oh, fashion item. We'll all wear the green girdle. Da, 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 da. So they come, the knights of the green girdle, and they wear it that way as a sign of honor and create the Knights of the Garter and make it out to be an honorable thing, even though it's a symbol of dishonor. So how Christian is the court is the question that comes out of the whole passage, when they won't even acknowledge the dishonor or they make it a part of the code of honor. Anyway, I think the answer is pretty clear, and I guess it's a reminder to be honest, you could say, but I'm not so sure it's quite as simple as all that. There's a lot of complexity here, and there's certainly a lack of integrity that is now part of the whole of Arthur's court, and a critique of the Christian heroism of the Knights of the Round Table in it. So interesting little passage. I thought you'd like it. What are we doing next time? I can't recall. What's next? Every man. Yes. Okay. Every man next time. You'll like that too.